Chapter 1. Branding time at a werewolf ranch always took on extra meaning for single Lupins, and Katie Thomas knew exactly which wolf she wanted beneath tonight's moon. Grayson Moore, owner of the Double D Ranch bordering the Mitchell Ranch, where Katie lived. Lone Lupin, mysterious wolf and a great cowhand. Aiden, her alpha, had asked Grayson to help out with rounding up and branding Mitchell Ranch calves today. Not that they needed extra wranglers, but Aiden had been real neighborly after Grayson purchased the Double D a year ago. A cool wind whipped through the tall grasses and ruffled the curls in her long ponytail. Overhead, the sky was a crisp Montana blue, and the sun warmed her shoulders as she rode her gelding through the western pasture, her long brown curls bouncing against her shoulders. Aiden had assigned her to work with Grayson, roping the calves, tying them up, for Kyle to brand and vaccinate, and then leaving the ugly work of castrating the bull calves to Darius and their new vet Parker. On his gelding, riding next to her, Grayson whistled a familiar song. The tune always tugged at her, for it was the only vague recollection from her childhood before she came to the Mitchell Ranch. Nat King Cole's Smile. I love that song, she told him as he finished. Grayson winked at her. I know. You told me before, Katie. Watching him gallop off toward the herd, she followed. What did he look like? Naked? With his thick shock of dark hair, faint stubble shadowing a taut jaw, and tall, muscled body, Grayson epitomized all the good things she knew about male lupins. Sexy, handsome, strong, but alone, no pack, using only skins to work his ranch. It was the one characteristic that other female lupins disapproved of. But intrigued Katie. Tonight was the traditional barbecue and dance, and then the running as wolves beneath the moon. She hoped Grayson would be there. All the previous social events at the Mitchell Ranch, Grayson participated in the dining and dancing, and left when it came time to shift. If she didn't know better, she'd think he didn't want anyone seeing him shift into his wolf form. Pulling his horse up to an expert stop, Grayson tipped back his black Stetson and regarded her with his ice blue eyes. Ready to rope the next one, Katie? He asked. She nodded, jerked out of her daydream of envisioning him nude, lying sprawled out in bed, his gaze inviting. Pale yellow sunlight dappled the thicket of pines and oaks bordering the pasture where the gushing river tumbled over boulders and rocks, uncaring, unjudging. The vista, with jagged mountain peaks soaring in the distance, seemed serene, but her stomach churned and her heart pounded from Grayson's nearness. She galloped toward the next target, roping him as Grayson leapt off his gelding and then tied up the bawling calf. He hunkered down, speaking in a low, soothing voice to the animal. Most wranglers treated calves like future McDonald's hamburgers, but Grayson had a soft side that she really liked. Now that she'd turned 21 and was fully wolf, she became well aware of his other assets as well. She drifted back into the fantasy of Grayson lying nude in bed, wondering what he wanted with her. A deep male voice spoke into her mind. Tied up, naked and helpless at my mercy, I would make you scream with pleasure. Fuck you hard and fast and you would know you were mine and no other males. I would pound into you so hard, trap you in my bed until your belly grew big with my young. Yeah, that's what I'd like to do to you in the dark of night, Katie. Shocked, she blinked hard. The loud chugging of 3 ATVs drew nearer. Grayson looked up. Release the rope, he ordered in the same deep voice that had spoken in her mind seconds ago. She released her rope, staring at Grayson. Kyle, her pack's best hunter, stopped his machine and took the branding kit toward the calf. On separate ATVs, Darius and Parker stopped as well. Nice work, Katie, Darius called out. High praise from the pack's beta wolf. She shuddered as Darius helped Parker prepare the calf for castration and turned away. Watch and learn if you want to be a rancher's mate, Katie, Grayson told her. In that same velvet smooth, deep timbre. The other lupins in her pack could have been branding and castrating trolls. For all she cared. She gave Grayson a long, cool look. Why would I need to know that? I thought male lupins cherished their balls, she shot back. Darius laughed while Kyle and Parker grinned, but Grayson said nothing. He only continued to gaze at her, as if he wanted to tie her up naked in his bed. Ignoring all of them, she kicked her mount and rode off a little ways to take a break. Something extraordinary had happened and it confused the hell out of her. Lupins couldn't communicate telepathically. Near the fence line dividing the Mitchell Ranch from Grayson's property, Katie stopped her horse, climbed off and drank deeply from her water bottle. Gee, wiped a hand across her sweating forehead as Grayson galloped closer. Grayson dismounted and strode toward her, his short, dark brown hair hidden beneath his black Stetson. He was a big man/wolf, more than 6'5" of pure muscle. Faded blue jeans hugged his trim legs and the taut roundness of his very taut butt. His flat belly and deep chest were hidden by a black work shirt, open at the throat. A dusting of dark hair showed in the deep V-strain showed in his bright blue eyes, and lines bracketed his full mouth. He was 32, quite young for a Lupin, but there was something even more other about Grayson than the Lupin she'd lived among most of her life. Maybe the other was telepathic communication, though she supposed it was possible. She'd never heard of such a trait. He stopped barely 2 feet from her, crowding her, making her fully aware of the sweat beading on his forehead, the thin line of his kissable mouth, his dark, rich scent of sage, evergreen and leather, and something much more earthy like sex. Trembling, she started to lift the water bottle to her mouth when he reached out, wrapped his lean, strong fingers around it. Grayson's ice blue gaze met hers as he gently pulled the bottle from her grasp, lifting it to his mouth. He tipped back his head and drank deeply, the muscles of his strong throat working. Katie's heart beat faster as he finished, wiped his mouth with the back of one hand and murmured thanks to her as he handed back the bottle. Sharing water, nothing more. But the gesture indicated a deeper intimacy, as if he wanted to swap other body fluids with her, and planned to do so very soon. He reached out, traced a droplet of sweat rolling down her cheek like a tear. "You okay?" he murmured, lowering his hand. "You look shaken." She studied the sweep of pasture, the jagged purple mountains as she tried to leash emotions that had her spinning around. "I'm wool gathering. Skill best practiced on a sheep ranch." The joke made her turn back to him, and his grin relaxed her. This was the Grayson she'd gotten to know over the past few months. "You're very funny. Lupins and cattle are bad enough. Sheep? Too tempting." "Reckon there's many things tempting to a fully mature Lupin. You're 21 now, Katie. Fully come into your powers." Grayson tipped back his hat and studied her until she felt like a bug pinned on a board. "You ever get any strange dreams with colors purple and pink? Dreams with fae in them and strange creatures you've never seen before?" Such an odd question to ask. She frowned. "Not that I can remember." "Why? You ever do call me? You ever need me, Katie, day or night? I'll be here for you." His gaze darkened. "Don't tell your folks or anyone else in your pack if you have those dreams." "Why not?" He rubbed a hand over his chin. "Reckon they wouldn't understand." "Is it something bad?" She thought of the odd dream she'd had last night, and the wispy fragments she barely remembered. It had not been bad, just unsettling. Much as she loved her adoptive parents and her 5 older brothers, she felt lately they didn't understand her. She'd been abandoned near the ranch and had no memory of her first 8 years on this earth. Sometimes she wondered if she was a normal Lupin or something else. Lupins like her friend Holly didn't have these odd yearnings. Certainly, Katie's parents did not, nor did they understand how she longed to run solo beneath the full moon and flesh out prey. Her parents didn't realize how she felt restricted and stifled. No matter how much she loved her parents and pack and how much they adored her, she felt there was something else tugging at her when she gazed at the horizon. Grayson's gaze intensified. "Not bad. Different. You ever feel you need to talk? I'm here for you, Katie. We're friends." She nodded. All her Lupin instincts flared like sparks on dry kindling. She liked Grayson as a friend, but now she felt something deeper, more meaningful. He felt the same too, judging from the interest flaring in his gaze. But there was that odd communion between them, the wicked sexual thoughts he'd spoken into her mind must have been her imagination. She watched Kyle, Darius, and Parker finish castrating the calf. Holly, riding a spirited mare, galloped toward the trio. Sighing, Katie watched her friend begin flirting with Parker, who was single, unlike Kyle and Darius. "She always gets the guys," she muttered, more to herself than Grayson. "Holly's delicate, feminine, and frail. Men like that, especially Lupins, guess it brings out their protective instincts." The only male who'd ever asked her for a date was Charles, who was short and not unattractive, but he lacked a sense of humor and he had a slight cruel streak. She'd seen the way he worked with the calves. When he'd asked her out, she politely refused him. And then he'd asked her Again, in front of the whole damn pack, and she had to really spurn him. Charles had gotten red-faced, but she figured his ego would recover. Katie needed something else. She wasn't certain exactly what, but she refused to settle for someone as dull and ordinary as Charles. Yet, seeing Holly flirt with Parker, she wished a man would tell her how beautiful she was for once, and shower her with attention the way some men did with her friends. Some men don't want China dolls. Some men need a strong woman who can take the roughness they need to give them, Grayson said quietly. Red flushed her face at that comment. Her heart began pounding hard. After that interlude in her head earlier, she had a good idea of how rough he liked. Your scent changed. You're afraid of me now. He watched her, not drawing near, not smiling either. No. Curious. Why don't you have a mate, Grayson? He turned toward the group working with the calves. Reckon I haven't found the right one yet, who won't be afraid of living with a lone wolf. That comment intrigued her. Always alone, and yet he liked being with her. Liked being around the Mitchell pack and always came over when invited. Why are you a lone wolf? You told me you never had a pack before buying the Double D. Why don't you have a pack? Grayson's mouth thinned out. Don't go there, Katie. I am who I am, and I'm not pack wolf around here. Never will be. She couldn't imagine life as Grayson lived, never having other Lupins around for support, friendship, good times, and to run with through the woods on a full moon. He mounted his horse and gestured to the herd. Let's go. Mounting Star, she cantered toward the next calf as Grayson rode beside her. For a few moments he said nothing. Then he spoke in a quiet voice above the gurgle of the river, the cattle, and the laughter of the other Lupins. Katie, much as I'd like to run as wolf with you tonight, understand that I won't. Bewildered, she studied his sharp profile beneath the shadow of the black Stetson. Why? I have my reasons. Someday you'll find out, he finally said. Watching him gallop off to the next calf, Katie followed, totally flummoxed. Who exactly was Grayson Moore, and why did she suspect he was hiding something dark and dangerous that had nothing to do with Chapter 3. Katie was gone. Kidnapped by someone in her own damn pack. The crazy thought swirled around Grayson's tired, stunned brain as Aiden and several other male Lupins milled about the parking lot of the bar. Kyle Morgan, a good cowhand and one of the best trackers in the West, was inside trying to nail down the scents. With the deluge of smells from stale beer to old vomit to cloying perfume, it presented a real challenge for an ordinary Lupin to find who was involved. But Grayson had faith in Kyle. Drunk Charles had taken Katie. Why, he didn't know, but damn, he was going to find out. Crouching down by the spot where Charles had parked his sedan, Aiden examined the ground and then looked up. The yellowish glow of the sodium lights picked out the fierce amber in his gaze. The Alpha's wolf howling at the abduction of one of his own by one of his own. Grayson headed for the Alpha, ignoring the glares of the other males. Aiden's side, Darius, the Alpha's second in command, lifted his handsome face to the wind, sniffing the breeze. Aiden straightened, dusted off his hands. Tell me what you know. Grayson told him for the third time. Charles was acting drunk, but I couldn't smell more than a couple of beers in him. If I'd known there was a threat to Katie, I'd never have left her side. Not your responsibility, Darius said coolly. It's more my responsibility than you know. He gave the beta a level look. I'd be shirking my duty as a male to not be worried and pitch in to help find her. Right duty of every red-blooded male Lupin to protect a female. And if you tell me to butt out, I'll track her on my own. Darius gave a rough nod, while Aiden simply assessed him, saying nothing. The silence didn't bother him. He was used to silence when other male Lupins sized him up, wondered what the hell he was about, not being pack and all. Lone wolves were regarded with suspicion in this stretch of the West, and rightly so. A lone wolf could prove to be a dangerous Lupin going rogue against his own kind, making trouble, or, even worse, exposing their secrets to the skin world. Lone wolves had no alpha to reel them in when they headed toward trouble. But Grayson had survived here alone, and he'd been careful never to draw any attention to himself. Maybe alpha ran through his blood as well, for he refused to lower his gaze before the powerful Mitchell pack leader. Gaze locked to his, Aiden finally nodded, touched the brim of his Stetson as a sign of respect. A little tension eased, but it did nothing to chase the battalion of butterflies swarming in Grayson's guts. Katie was missing, and every damn second they wasted on posturing was another second she slipped Farther away, a big silver pickup roared into the parking lot, stopped before the dumpster. Out spilled Katie's 5 older brothers and her parents. Grayson steeled his spine. While Mary, Katie's mom, had been polite to him, Dave and Sons had glowered at him at the barbecue when Katie personally wrapped up a few extra biscuits for him to take home. Grayson suspected they didn't want their girl anywhere near a lone wolf, an unknown factor in their well-planned lives. What the hell is he doing here? Dave jabbed a thumb in Grayson's direction. As he addressed his alpha, Mary put a hand on her mate's arm. Dave, please settle down. Aiden walked over to Dave, put a calming hand on the other Lupin's shoulder. Ease up, Dave. He's helping us. Oh, how do we know he's not the reason Katie went missing? Holly and Sherry said the bartender told them he was the last person to speak to her. Tom, the eldest brother, was yelling in Grayson's direction. Guilt speared him as Grayson wondered about that himself. I should never have left her alone. Grayson is the one who called me to alert me to the fact she'd been kidnapped, Aiden said mildly. It wouldn't do any good. The father and brothers had it in their minds that Grayson was the enemy, so he turned and walked toward the dumpster. He circled it, resisting the urge to call upon his long-dormant wolf. He could find Katie without the beast surfacing. He'd tracked enough stray cattle. More, you have something to do with this. I know it. I can smell it. I ought to whip your ass. Katie's father shouted. Dave, take your family and go home. We'll handle it here, Aiden ordered. The older Lupin bristled. She's my daughter. I know, Aiden said. And if by chance Charles brings her home after a joy ride, wouldn't you want to be there to comfort her? Grayson could smell Mary's fear and panic. Katie's mother looked at her mate. He's right, Dave. Let them handle it. Kyle's the best tracker he can find. Her. Maybe she's already home by now. I hope she's home. I can't bear it if anything happens to her. She began to cry. Katie's a strong Lupin, but there's such evil in this world. Aiden, find my daughter. The alpha gave a brusque nod, and Dave slid an arm around her shoulder, leading her back to the truck as their sons trailed behind. Grayson felt a gnawing ache in his gut at Mary's distress. Katie had to come home. Whoever did this would pay. Spotting something sparkling in the muddied slush in back of the dumpster, he squatted down. Nostrils flared, scenting something very odd and cold. So very cold, like ice that had laid upon the earth for more than 1,000 years. Grayson touched the glittering substance. It dusted his palm, made his heart beat uncomfortably fast. Mingled with the metallic stench was Katie's sweet fragrance. All the senses he'd suppressed for years howled, making it impossible for him to ignore. Impossible for him to pretend he was Skin, not Lupin. His palm shaking like a leaf in the wind, he stood, grappling with his lost composure. Gaze riveted to the ground, he tried to shut out all the distractions, the voices of angry, worried males, the deeper and more commanding tone of the pack alpha, and a truck pulling into the parking lot, belching blue smoke that stung his overly sensitive nostrils. She's with him, goddess help her. She's with him and I don't know how to help her. Memories surged, the pitiful cries of a small, trapped girl, the terrible feeling of helplessness as he tried to reach her outstretched hand as she begged him to save her. A door slammed, and the brisk clip of boot heels clicked across the parking lot. Grayson finally forced himself to focus on the present. It's in the past. You ain't that wolf any longer. He swerved and watched Nia Blakemore Mitchell, Aiden's mate, stride across the parking lot, her long dark blonde hair swaying with each step. Nia was a force unto herself. Nothing, not even pregnancy, slowed her down. Aiden, what did you find out? Nia demanded. I can help. Go home, Aiden told her, resting his hand on his mate's very large belly. Do you want to have the baby here in the parking lot? Nia scowled. I'll have the baby anywhere I damn please, Mitchell, but you are not leaving me out of this. Katie's one of mine. Ours, the alpha countered. And we are responsible. Get it? We, plural. So stop coddling me. I'm Fine. Katie isn't yours. She's mine. Grayson looked at the dark glitter on his hands. Charles taking Katie was bad enough, but this was really bad news, because it meant something sinister lurked behind this kidnapping, something that went deeper than a jealous cowhand spiriting off a female. It had the stamp of a well-conceived plan. And Charles is one of ours, so if he's gone rogue, I'll help you bring him in, Nia continued. Grayson stepped forward, facing the frowning male alpha and the gutsy female. Alpha. It wasn't just him. They turned to him. Charles wasn't working alone. Grayson spread out his palm to reveal the pink and purple glitter he'd picked up. Dark fey dust. Silence fell over the parking lot. The other Lupins glanced at each other with unease. Dark fey, Aiden mused. Damn. A dark fey has Katie? Darius growled. Why would a dark fey want her? And how the hell is Charles involved in this? Good question. Could Charles have seen what Grayson had? Could Charles tell Katie was something special? Doubtful. Hell, Katie herself didn't know. Yet. Has Charles been acting odd, requested time off from you? Aiden asked his beta. Darius shook his head. But he has been hanging out here more, and he also hasn't been in his bunk earlier than 2 o'clock in the morning. I didn't question it since he's never late for work. Figured Charles needed to get out. Get laid or something. A chill raced down Grayson's spine. Charles hadn't been out scouting for someone to warm his bed, but probably had found a hidden portal and let a nasty something through to plan this kidnapping. The others had no fucking clue what they were dealing with. Only he did. And letting them know all the knowledge he possessed would blow his cover. He wanted to appear a normal Lupin. He wanted Katie safe more than he wanted normal. As the front door of the bar opened, a tall Lupin emerged. Kyle. Aiden barked. Get the hell over here. When he did, Aiden pointed to Grayson. Take a whiff of what's on his palm and tell me what you know. Kyle's expression darkened. Dark fey. I don't know this scent, but we know someone who does. Prince Alexander and Princess Emma, of Clan Draken. Dragons, Aiden mused. Emma's birth father is dark fey. Grayson didn't like the connection. Dragons were friendly enough shifters, but a dragon with a dark fey father? We don't need their help, he told Aiden. Aiden gave him a long, thoughtful look. We'll get no further information. Here. Kyle. Darius, bottle as much of the dark fey dust as you can. Grayson. You'll come back with us to the ranch. Grayson started to dust off his hands, thought better of it. Gut instinct warned him to keep evidence for himself. Aiden told his pack to leave, and when they were gone, snap your fingers. Alpha and everyone but your mate obeys. He put a hand on Grayson's shoulder. The contact made him stiffen, though there was nothing heavy-handed or authoritative about the gesture. It was more in friendship. Grayson hadn't any real friends in a very long time. Felt odd but good. Nia stood before him, and when he looked into her eyes, he saw the worry. There. They were truly concerned about Katie, as much as her own family was. Maybe this was what he'd missed out on all these years. He wouldn't ever join them, but for now Grayson would aid any way possible. They knew Katie had lived with her for most of her life. He needed information. If he was going to track her down and rescue her. You don't need dragons to tell you where Katie is. Grayson removed his Stetson, ran a thumb around the brim. I know where she went. Nia gasped and Aiden stiffened. Where is she? Please tell me. Nia's big blue eyes filled with tears. We have to find Katie. She's one of ours. Something dangerous uncoiled inside him. No, she's not. She never was yours. Just yours to raise, Nia. His voice deepened, and he knew if the sodium lights were stronger they'd reflect his changing eyes. She's in a place where you can't get her. Place where someone can hurt her. Aiden growled deep. We'll find her. I'll find her. First, I'll return with you to the ranch. Gonna be things I'll need when I find her. Information about her. If you're not telling us something, Aiden began. Grayson gave the alpha a cool look. All you need to know is that Katie will return to you safe and unharmed if you quit wasting time. That's all I'm saying. No more. Got it, Mitchell. Nia tugged at her mate's arm. Please, Aiden, let's go home. Aiden gave a brusque nod. Grayson turned and headed for his truck. He couldn't track her from here without more information. Whoever orchestrated this was far too clever. And whatever they planned for Katie, he knew it was. Chapter 4. Dark. So dark. Even her acute wolf senses couldn't pick out a single thing in the ink-black room. Katie sat up, wincing as she rubbed her temples. She squeezed her eyes closed, shutting out the terrifying blackness, trying to recall what happened. She'd been outside the bar to look for her friends, and then her world went dark. When she woke, she was here. Terror threatened to surface, but Katie pushed it down. Her parents hadn't raised a namby-pamby wolf who panicked. Dave taught all of them to think on their feet or paws and how to survive on their own. Her adoptive mother had taught her how to fight males who got too friendly and showed unwanted attention. Her family might be overprotective, but they also wanted her to know how to get out of trouble if the occasion warranted. I'd say the time is right. What irony. She'd wanted to be free of her family and finally start to live, experience adventure. Now she had plenty of it. Dragging in a deep breath, she smelled dampness and mildew and a stench. Warning, she was in unfamiliar territory. Cave perhaps. The thought sent shivers through her. She'd hated caves since childhood, since when a dim memory tugged at her. Having no recollection of life before she was 8 years old truly sucked. Every once in a while a memory flickered like a light bulb, but never enough to fully understand. Certain sights or smells like this triggered the past. All she knew was she'd been orphaned and found by Darius, the Mitchell pack beta, wandering on a dirt road bordering the ranch. He'd taken her and given her to Dave and Mary to raise, and she'd been happy ever since. But every once in a while she wished she could track down her real origins. Who were her parents? Did they have a pack? Did this kidnapping have anything to do with her origins? Made no sense since Charles was her abductor. Still, the smells here, even the taste of the air, were oddly familiar. She touched the ground beneath her. Nothing but cool concrete. In the distance she heard the rustle of wind and murmured voices above her. Definitely a basement. But that stench, it smelled like lost hope mingled with decay. Her sensitive wolf's nose twitched and the wolf inside her whined, wanting to get away from this terrible place. It's okay, she soothed her wolf. Let's figure out a plan. We'll get out of here. A door to her right opened, spilling in harsh light. Katie's eyes watered from the sudden pain. She said nothing as the person stomped across the floor and then seized her arm, hauling her upright. Biting back a cry, she waited. And then she heard a switch snap on and blazing light filled the room. She blinked fast, willing herself to calm. The scent of her captor slammed into her before her pupils could adjust to the light. Charles. Trying to calm herself, Katie scanned the room, assessing her prison. An open, sturdy oak door showed a hallway blazing with light. The room where she was held was painted gray without windows and looked almost like a safe room. Concrete floor, her nose twitched, and walls impossible to break into or out of. The open door remained her only option. Charles, I hope this is a joke, she told him. He squeezed her arm painfully, but she bit her lip, willing herself not to cry out. I got paid good money to bring you here. Katie's heart raced faster. She turned her head to study her captor. Charles's dark hair was rumpled, his clothing stained and torn, and he looked as if he'd been dragged backward through a ditch. What did I ever do to you? You don't belong with us. You never have. Ever since the day you came to live with us, everyone's given you extra attention to make up for you being abandoned. I felt sorry for you, so I asked you out, and you had to turn me down in front of everyone. You're different, bitch. And different in a pack is bad. You're not good enough to pick and choose. I was doing you a damn favor. Charles released his vice-like grip on her arm, his bloodshot gaze wild. Maybe it had been slightly cruel to spurn him in front of everyone, but she was glad her instincts proved right. Charles had a point, however. She had felt different from the others ever since her birthday last month. Maybe he's right. I'm not good enough for anyone. And then a deep male voice spoke in her mind from memory. Grayson, you ever need me, Katie, day or night? I'll be here for you. I am good enough, Charles, she said quietly, knowing her words were futile, but needing to state it aloud. I just wasn't interested. See? You're not a damn Lupin. Any normal female Lupin would want me. Staggering back, he covered his face and began to sob. Pity flashed through her, even as she began sidling toward the open door. You'll find someone, Charles. The right female, Katie soothed, keeping her gaze trained on him as she crept toward freedom. And then she heard movement behind her, scented something even more foul, and cried out, running to the opposite wall. Two tall, gaunt strangers in black tunics carried in a wood box. They set it at short distance from the door. The men, with pale hair spilling down their backs, did not speak or even regard her. Katie had met a few fae when they visited the ranch and recognized the scent, but these fae were tangled with something dark and evil. Chains sat atop the box. The men attached the chain to a round loop on the Wallen locked it. One pulled a pin and opened the box's side. A furry round creature with squat legs waddled out. A length of chain hooked around one stubby leg. It had the bitter metallic odor of pure iron. The chain pulled the creature short, allowing it to reach the door but not beyond. Then one of the men took a short pole, rippling with pink and purple colors. He jabbed it at the creature, and sparks jumped onto it. The creature howled again and retreated toward the box. Katie bristled. She hated seeing anything abused, though this creature looked as if it could defend itself. Laughing, the men jumped back as the creature tried to rush at them, pulled short by the chain. Pity faded as the creature turned to her. It had two beady yellow eyes and a red slit of a mouth. Then it opened the mouth, showing rows of triangular teeth. Jaws snapped inward. The creature drooled as it strained toward her. Horror immobilized her. She could not think nor breathe. The men nodded at Charles, the first one keeping his stick in front as if to jab at the creature again if it rushed toward the door. Charles held up a blue sack bulging at the sides. He opened it to show her gold coins within. I sold you to the Darkwing Gentlemen's Club. You're not in Kansas anymore, bitch. You're in the Dark Kingdom. Katie kept her eyes on the creature, which had retreated to its box. She hoped the iron chains would hold. You're insane, Charles. There is no such place. Except in fairy stories. Oh, it exists. I found the portal when I went to Las Vegas for the weekend to ease my pain after you rejected me. Only a few others can enter without losing their sanity. But he'd surely lost his. Charles was quite mad. You brought me to the Dark Kingdom and sold me? Aiden and the pack will never stop looking for me. And you're dead, Charles. Soon as they find you, they'll tear you to pieces. I'll be long gone, to where they can never find me. And they will never find you, Katie. You're in the place where normal others fear to tread. Fear curdled in her stomach. What do they want with me? I don't know. His smile turned evil. But whatever it is, I'm sure it will be painful. Fear will get you nowhere. But the terror bubbled up inside her like a witch's cauldron. It was useless arguing with him to free her. Charles's hatred ran too deep. She kept staring at the black furred ball now emerging from the crate. Opened its mouth and snarled at her. Meet the Thanak. It loves to feast on fresh flesh. If you even try getting near the door, it will devour you. The Dark Fae keep it here for prisoners. Few have tried to escape, and I've been told it's not a pleasant way to die. His nasty smile faded. I hope you try to escape, bitch, and you die badly. Charles and the Fae left, slammed the door shut behind them. His maniacal laugh floated through the thick oak. Katie started for the door, but the Thanak waddled toward her. She backed away. I am going to die. Someday. Not today, and not here where my family will never know where I am. Or Grayson. No one would rescue her. It was up to her to save herself. Katie backed away from the snarling ball of fangs and fur. At least the lights were on. She slid farther along the wall and felt something at her back. The lights winked out, leaving them alone in the dark. Chapter 5. Seated at his massive desk, Aiden propped one dusty boot upon the desktop as his mate sat in a chair next to him. Darius perched a hip on the desk while Dave and his sons took up the conference table. Katie's white Stetson sat in the table's middle like an awkward centerpiece. Katie's father and brothers kept glaring at Grayson, probably blaming him for this incident too. Katie is in the Dark Kingdom. I don't care what you think of me, but I need information. Anything you can tell me about who she's been keeping company with lately. Especially men, Grayson said. Nia and Aiden exchanged troubled glances. The Mitchell Alpha frowned as if he had trouble believing Grayson's words. We don't know for certain that she is in the Dark Kingdom. Grayson held up his hand, still dusted with fey glitter. I sure as hell do. This didn't come from anywhere else. Charles left a trail of it, which means he's found a way in, or he has a Dark Fae working with him. Since Dark Fae prefer their own world, I'd bet my ranch that bastard found a portal, and he took her there. Now are you going to sit around and jaw or do something? Mitchell. Darius bristled and snarled at the insult to his alpha, and Katie's family sprang to their feet. But Aiden only flashed a tired smile. If you're trying to insult me more, you need to do a hell of a lot better. I believe you. The alpha took his boots off the desk. She hasn't been keeping company with any men far as I know. Dave. Katie's father shook his head. Tell me about when you first found her, Grayson ordered. He was in luck. The amulet was still with her. Darius began to pace the room. She didn't speak much. She knew her name but had no memory of her folks or where she'd been living. She smelled like a Lupin, and when I took her here she wasn't afraid. Even when I shifted into Wolf she wasn't afraid. She laughed and clapped her hands. Probably she'd never seen such a small wolf. But Grayson kept that thought quiet. Did she have anything on her? An amulet? He asked. Darius frowned. A locket hanging on a necklace, I think. It wasn't a locket. This was from Katie's father. It was a purple stone with runes on her neck. I put it away, didn't want to upset her. Figured I would give it to her when she got older. Right. Dave put it away because the gemstone scared the hell out of him. Go. Get it. Katie's father scowled. No. Get it, Grayson told him. If you ever want to see her again, get the damn stone. Dave looked at Aiden, who nodded. Get it. Now. A few minutes later, the Lupin returned with a wood box. He set it on the conference table and opened it. Upon a bed of blue velvet, the purple gemstone pulsed with raw power. Barbed wire wrapped around it and formed a necklace. Aiden and the others peered at it and shuddered. Damn, Darius murmured. I don't remember barbed wire. Aiden hooked an arm around Nia, who looked deeply troubled. A barbed wire necklace around the neck of a small child? Who would be so evil? Darius rubbed his chin. I don't remember her hurting. Katie just seemed sad. As Darius went to pick it up, Katie's father blocked his hand. Don't touch it. Without gloves or you'll get burned. I did when I removed it from her neck. Everyone stepped back. Entranced by the glowing purple gemstone, Grayson picked up the box with reverence and shut the lid. The barbed wire wasn't intended to hurt Katie, but protect her from anyone wishing to harm her. And it was a symbol of where to send her. Send her. Aiden's grip tightened around the shoulders of his pregnant mate. Send her where? To a Lupin ranch, where she would be safely raised until she became of age. Grayson drew in a deep breath. Telling them anything more was risky. He'd reveal more secrets that could endanger him. Then he looked at the faces of Katie's adoptive father and brothers, who looked frantic with worry. He tucked the box into his jacket pocket. I'll find her and bring her home. Safe. I promise. He was the only one who could, though they did not know. If they discovered what he really was, they would join together as a pack, panic, and try to tear him apart. That was what Lupin wolves did. Normal wolves. Grayson would never be normal. But Aiden Mitchell was not ruler for nothing. The alpha gently detached his arm from his mate and approached Grayson near the door, blocking him from leaving. A word more. Aiden opened the door and gestured to the hallway. Once they were outside his office, Aiden closed the door and leaned against it, arms folded. Level with me. Grayson didn't have to tell the alpha anything. He could simply leave the ranch, do what was necessary to save Katie. But he had too much respect for the Mitchell alpha. Grayson had seen how Aiden worked with his people, how protective and fierce he was with the pack. He withdrew the small wood box. This gemstone that was hanging on her neck is a protective amulet. If you or any of your pack touched it, it would have burned you. One reason why Dave removed it from his adoptive daughter. Aiden blinked fast. Son of a bitch. What do you know? He could give the alpha answers without revealing too much. Reckon Charles probably is using a dark fae to teleport him to the closest, most stationary portal entrance into the Dark Kingdom. Those portals are mirror doorways in places that have counterparts here in this world. The closest one is the Dark Wing Gentlemen's Club outside Las Vegas. It's a brothel. I heard of it, Aiden said dryly. It's owned by Jaden, father to Emma, the dragon princess of Clan Draken. He's a dark fae. Grayson tucked the box back into his jacket pocket. If he owns the club, then he knows it's a mirror doorway to go back and forth between worlds. There is a replica of that club in the Dark Kingdom, only it's much worse. Katie trapped in a brothel. Damn it. What can we do? Aiden asked. Words wouldn't find Katie, only action. If Charles had taken Katie to a Dark Kingdom brothel, she didn't have much time. Grayson knew those places liked fresh young flesh. You can't. All you can do is stay here, keep them. He pointed to the doorway. Calm and stop them from asking too many questions. Let me do my job. I'll send someone with you. Aiden decided. She's pack. Cal can help you. Track her down. I go alone. Too dangerous to risk anyone else. And it's not for you? The Alpha asked.
No.
No ordinary Lupin could battle with the evil forces in the parallel universe. Of the Dark Kingdom, a normal Lupin without protection would be dog meat. He aimed a level look at the Alpha, not daring to say more. Not needing to say more. If Aiden was half the wolf he suspected, the leader wouldn't hesitate if he thought Grayson was a threat. Suspicions were confirmed when the Alpha drew himself up and bristled. I don't know what you are, Grayson. I've called you friend for nearly a year. But if you are hiding anything that can hurt my mate, my pack, know this. Aiden took a step forward, jabbing a finger in his direction. I will break your damn neck to protect my own. Get it? The other male's bristling testosterone triggered his defenses. If Grayson's wolf came out now, there would be utter hell. No way could he control it, not after he hadn't shifted in years. With all his might, he leashed the beast that struggled to be free. Grayson fisted his hands so hard, he felt blood warm his palms. Understood, Mitchell. My concern is Katie. As Aiden gave a brief nod, Grayson went for the kill. I'm not doing this out of the goodness of my heart. Mitchell. The Alpha frowned. What do you want in return? Money? Cattle? Land? Name it. It's yours. She's one of ours. No, she is not. Name your price, damn it, Aiden ordered. Grayson slowly unclenched his fists and looked the Alpha straight in the eye. Katie. As my mate. Chapter 6. Trapped in a brothel in the Dark Kingdom. The mysterious, frightening place she'd only heard about in wolf tales as a child. And that thing barring her escape. Terror engulfed Katie, making her heart race like a war drum. The Thanak wanted her flesh, wanted to make her hurt and eat her alive. You are wolf. You are Lupin. You are strong. Don't be a ninny. Katie closed her eyes and then opened them. Amazement filled her. Despite the lights being out, a glow filled the room. Came from the Thanaka's yellow eyes. She could at least see the creature. Track its movements. But you could see more and no more if you shifted. Lupins didn't need the moon to shift, thank the goddess. Calling upon all her strength, she stretched out her arms and summoned her magic, not knowing if it would work in such a foul place. Bones lengthened and her clothing and her skin body vanished, replaced with wolf. The change was slower than in her world and more painful, but her senses exploded, as if her Lupin abilities of hearing, smell, taste and sight had amplified 10 times. Interesting. She didn't need the eerie yellow glow of the furball's eyes to see. Her night vision had sharpened to the point where she could pick out the scratches on the thick oak door, see the dust motes on the floor across the room. The Thanak grinned, showed rows of teeth that could shred metal. Katie bristled. She snarled at the furball. You may have teeth, but so do I. Stunned, she shut her mouth. Had she just talked? What the hell? Lupins couldn't talk in wolf form. She'd never heard of such a thing and never heard it done in her own pack. Katie opened her mouth again and growled. I have big teeth. Yup, it was her. Hey, I can talk. A talking wolf. Forgetting all her terror, she licked her nose. This is interesting. I can talk, she said aloud. Whoa. Wonder what other sounds I can make. Katie began to sing a chorus from Monty Python's The Lumberjack Song. The sensation was so overwhelming, Katie sat on her haunches and laughed. Now, she was a laughing wolf. Humor was much better than fear. The creature blinked. And then it grinned, showing those razor-sharp teeth. That didn't look quite so deadly anymore. Katie held out a paw. Look, let's be reasonable. I'm a wolf, you're a whatever you call it. I'm afraid I'll admit it, but of this cell, not you. Those men were mean to you and I believe you won't hurt me, so I'm going to shift back into my skin form. The Thanak blinked again. It moved its red slitted mouth as if it wished to speak. And I promise I won't hurt you, Katie added. She shifted back to skin and conjured back her clothing, her senses immediately dulling. After scanning the room, she saw the light switch had been turned off, probably when she hit it with her back. It was very close to the door. She ran to the switch, flipped it on as the creature advanced. Katie remained still. She didn't know why, but something urged her to show the creature she didn't need her wolf defenses. Obeying the impulse, she began talking in a low, soothing voice to the Thanak. I just want to be friends, okay? Show you I can be wolf, but this form is nicer because talking as a wolf is a crazy, you know? Except I can. Probably sing better in skin. When she was within striking range, Katie stooped down, petted it on the head, and then stepped back. It could snap at her, kill her if it wished. But her Lupin instinct told her it would not. The Thanic blinked and transformed into a petite woman with a heart-shaped face, delicate porcelain skin, silver blonde hair, big green eyes. Her ears were slightly pointed. She wore a forest green gown and her feet were bare. A fae. Staring at her, Katie didn't know what to think. Please do not sing, the fae said in a soft, musical voice. I do not think my ears can stand that shrieking again. Katie sank down to the floor, laughing again. When she stopped, the woman blinked at her and smiled. Thank you for breaking the curse. I was doomed to be Thanic until someone wasn't afraid of me in that form. What are you? She asked, deeply curious. My name is Ninia. I am Thanic, a face shifter. My shape-shifting form is what you saw, but I was cursed to remain like that by an evil fae when I refused to be his lover. I am niece to Queen Morgan, the dark fae ruler of the Unseelie court. I was taken a year ago from my home and brought here, cursed by the fae who owns this brothel when I refused to give him my maidenhood. Ninia snorted. Gurner is rumored to be a terrible lover, but he has much power. So this really is a brothel? Why was I brought here? To be sold into sexual slavery. Ninia frowned, hooking her arms around her knees. I think so. Many females from this world have passed through this prison. You have the scent and the stamp of the earthly skin world about you. Few Lupins of the skin world can tolerate the Dark Kingdom without going mad. Charles from my pack sold me. How did he get here? I overheard him talking with Gurner. It seems Gurner has been searching for you for a long while, and when Charles visited the Darkwing Gentlemen's Club on your world, Gurner recognized your scent. Troubled, she studied her new ally. Why would Gurner want me? I'm nobody. The fae tilted her head to one side. You do not know? Know what? Interesting, Ninia murmured. But first we must find a way out of here before they come for you. Do you know a way out? Katie knew her powers were too feeble to stand up against the dark fae, and she didn't have the slightest interest in hanging around to see how much bidders would pay for her virginity. The fae looked around the room. I have been in this room several times, and killed a few who were imprisoned here. At Katie's shudder she added, not women, bad men who deserved it. I imagine they tasted quite awful, Katie tried to joke. Not as sour as wolf meat, Ninia jested back. Then the fae stood, brushing at her gown. If you can remove the chain from my leg, I believe I can free us from this room and this brothel. The chain is iron and it burns. The iron chain didn't look complicated. It had a pin through the cuff ringing the fae's right ankle. She removed the pin and the chain fell off Ninia's leg. Katie winced at the reddened flesh on the fae's ankle. Can you walk? Katie asked. Ninia nodded. What else do you know about this place? Does the hallway go to an exterior exit? The brothel is a maze, and the hallway leads in many directions, but I have been through them all. If you can think of a way to get us free from this prison, I can lead us outside. Katie didn't know anything about Ninia, but she had to trust the fae. What other choice did she have if she were to try to survive in this new, odd world? How many guards do they usually have outside? Only one. Ninia frowned. I suppose there should be more, but you clearly have not come into your powers yet, so they do not fear you. Odd statement. Katie was fully Lupin. What other powers? The oak door was thick, but she knew sound penetrated, for she'd heard footsteps when Charles approached. I have an idea. Can you shift back into your Thanic form? Why? The only way we can get that door open is by tricking the guard. I'll scream. As if you're torturing me, and that might work. If they are truly intent on selling my body, they shouldn't want it damaged that badly. True. They would want to leave you as unmarked as possible for your buyer to ravage, Ninia said matter-of-factly. Fear of me attacking them is what keeps most prisoners away from the door, not an actual attack. The stench of rot and decay was grinding on Katie's wolf senses. She had to get out of the cell before going mad. She nodded at Ninia, who shifted back into her Thanic form. Screaming, Katie pounded on the door. Help me. It's eating me alive. It's tearing up my legs and it's going to shred me to ribbons. Sure enough, footsteps pounded down the hallway, signaling Ninia to be ready. Katie stepped behind the door to hide. Keys jingled and the thick door opened. She tripped the man and as he stumbled and fell, shouted, "Now!" Ninia turned into a whirling buzzsaw of teeth, sawing through the Fey guard. Like a steak knife through butter before he could utter a scream. Blood spurted and the slick coppery smell made Katie's wolf whine. Swallowing her gorge, Katie sidestepped the mess and peered out. "Let's roll." The Fey took her words seriously, for Ninia in her thanic form tucked up her stubby legs and began rolling down the hallway like a tumbleweed. Running after the thanic, she finally found herself facing a strong oak door. Katie opened it and Ninia rolled after her. They were outside in a courtyard with spongy green moss and tall trees against a thorny hedge. As a barrier it was quite effective. Shifting back to her Fey form, Ninia gestured to the hedge. "Follow me." Katie ran after her. Ninia waved a hand, sending purple glitter into the air. She murmured a chant and the hedge parted. They slipped through and then Ninia chanted again, closing the break in the greenery. They were outside the brothel's boundaries, in a wasteland that looked like hell. Clouds of ash rose in the air as Katie took a tentative step forward. "What happened here?" she asked, staring at the distant purple shadowed mountains, the flattened pine and oak trees that lay like jumbled matchsticks. Upon the grayness, a few boulders stood, brown and lonely looking against the moonscape. "The blasted zone," Ninia informed her. She belched and looked apologetic. "Sorry, eating other Fey always gives me heartburn." The Fey kicked at the ash covering the ground, sending tufts into the air much like the glitter she'd emitted with her hands. Only this ash held no brilliant color, nor any warmth or life. It was dead and cold as the land. "We must get as far as possible from here, for they will soon discover your absence." Ninia pointed to an outcropping of dark trees in the near distance. "The trees will provide us with refuge." A hot yellow sun burned down upon Katie as they began slogging through the thick ash. Each step felt like walking through wet concrete. The ash tickled her nose and made her sneeze. Every few feet Ninia waved a hand to erase their footprints. "How did the land get like this?" she asked Ninia. "Long ago, a group of dark Fey combined their powers and in their greed to become even more powerful they siphoned the energy of a volcano and it erupted, causing this wasteland. Nothing grows here or survives for long." Ninia glanced backward. "Hurry. If they find us out here they will torture you before giving you the mercy of death." Katie increased her pace. Fatigue pulled at her, making her muscles burn. She tried to keep her spirits up, but in this vast desert wasteland in a world totally unfamiliar to her, how could any of her people even begin to find her? Chapter 7. A cool wind rustled the leaves in the trees outside his ranch house the next morning. Grayson adjusted the pack on his shoulders that contained the supplies he needed. He had spent all night tracing an ancient map, learning old routes, and then finally fell into a restless sleep, needing all his energy for the task ahead. He needed to be alone for what he must do. He chartered a private jet to fly to Las Vegas. Once in the city he rented the fastest car and drove to the brothel that was a portal to the dark kingdom. Finally he arrived outside a 2-story house, painted a pale cream with green shutters inside the forbidding iron fence that ringed the structure. The walkway was concrete. The front door was solid oak, with an intricate carving of runes. Grayson recognized as Fey. Magic pulsed in the air. The Darkwing Gentlemen's Club, a very exclusive club for male others near Sin City. Jagged blue-gray mountains flanked the valley and a stand of tall trees hid the building from the street. Grayson sensed skins living nearby were blissfully unaware of the brothel. Power lines passed nearby and he felt the crackle and hum of energy singing in the air. Interesting. He went to the doorway and rang the bell, expecting a legion of servants, perhaps a grizzly or Lupin bodyguard, to answer. He was surprised to see a dark Fey open the door. He was tall as Grayson, but clad in a black tunic, black leggings and black boots. He had long ice-blonde hair, hard brown eyes set beneath dark arched brows, and bore a cynical look. Instinctively Grayson knew this man. Jaden, the dark Fey Aiden mentioned. A silver sword was sheathed at the golden belt ringing his tunic. Grayson kept his gaze trained on the Fey's face, knowing Jaden's magic was far more a threat than any Fey-forged steel. "Wolf," Jaden drawled. "I've been expecting you." Grayson looked around, every instinct on full alert. "How? Your magic?" The dark Fey looked amused. "No magic except for the phone company. Mitchell. Called a while ago. Grayson entered the brothel, taking care to avoid skin contact with the dark Fae. Energy crackled in the air. You're pulling power from the electrical grid, he said. Jaden gave him a thoughtful look. I can teach you how to harness it, Wolf. There are many things one can do in this world, if one is equipped with the abilities. Grayson narrowed his gaze. I'm here to access the portal to the Dark Kingdom, not play show and tell. Where is it? A short, unamused laugh. You are a wolf of few words, Grayson Moore. And yet, your friends in the Mitchell pack do not know exactly what you are. You are eager to hide this from them. Silence remained his best defense. The Fae could easily pull the information from Grayson's mind. Grayson knew how to erect defenses against mind invasion. Giving an elegant shrug, Jaden led the way into the brothel. Opulent furnishings greeted him as he was escorted inside. Jewel-toned Persian carpets lay upon the marbled floors and the tall ceilings featured cornice moldings. The receiving area resembled a sheik's palace. He followed Jaden through a hallway to the back of the house, past a kitchen, where an ogre in a white chef's coat stirred a pot at a 6-burner stove. They went out the back door. What seemed like an acre of dry grass stretched outside, ringed by a tall fence surrounding the brothel. Jaden headed for a stubby tree. This is the portal. The dark Fae pointed to the tree. You will have to send over your pack first before crossing over. I know. Jaden gave him another thoughtful look. It has been a long time since you last visited that world, has it not? I smell more of the skin world on you than Lupin. Busy unbuckling his pack, Grayson said nothing and set the pack near the tree. He removed the amulet given to him in childhood and tucked it into a pocket of the pack, then chanted the spell he'd never forgotten. There was a brilliant purple flash nearly blinding him and the backpack vanished. Jaden gave a low bow. After you. His heart nearly stopped. I'm not going with you. But we are headed to the same place, so why not travel together and save ourselves the drain caused by crossing over? All his suspicions flared. Grayson tensed. What the hell do you want with Katie? Jaden's pointed ears twitched. Nothing. I have no desire to put myself out for your Lupin. There are other matters holding my interest. Female ones. You want to get laid by a dark Fae? Jaden laughed. I have no need to purchase pleasure for the night. No, I will tell you. You are a singular-minded Lupin, and have no interest in Fae matters. There is a dark Fae named Ninia who went missing a year ago. I suspect she's prisoner in the brothel and the queen wants her back. There was only one queen in the Dark Kingdom. The Unseelie Queen ruled over all dark Fae, but for the solitary ones who avoided complicated court politics. Queen Morgan of the Unseelie Court? What does she want with her? Jaden's cynical look returned. Ninia is her niece. There is quite a nice reward for her safe return. Safe return. It had to be specified. Safe for Fae in the Dark Kingdom would tear her apart and send the pieces back, expecting the reward. What is Morgan paying? The Fae lifted an eyebrow. Why should you care, Grayson Moore? Just curious. Jaden removed his sword and twirled it in the air. 500 gold pieces. And the head of a very annoying troll I've pursued for many months. Little slick bastard manages to get the slip on me each time I draw near. He must be quite powerful to escape a mighty Fae like you, Grayson mocked. The Fae struck at a branch of a sapling, lopping it off neatly. He is a distraction I cannot afford to have. Easier to pay Morgan to send his men after him and do him justice than to hire my own bounty hunters. Of course I have heard as well that the missing woman has a certain magic of her own I wish to explore. It didn't sound very honorable. Then again, it wasn't his business. Though chivalry wasn't dead in him. Not yet. If you're going to harm her, I will find Morgan and tell her myself, Grayson warned. Jaden laughed. No, though it is none of your business. Ninia's magic that I wish to explore is of a different nature, and she will find it quite pleasurable for me to tutor her. He winked, and Grayson realized the magic the Fae mentioned was of a sexual nature. He shrugged. Your hide, Fae. If the missing Ninia was related to Queen Morgan, she had her own defenses against Jaden's sexual tricks. Jaden nodded at the tree. Shall we? If you are ready, hold on to my belt. Grayson clutched the back of the Fae's belt, steeling himself for the shock of entry. He felt apprehension at finally going back after all these years. After closing his eyes, Grayson felt a ripple in the air, much like that of an approaching windstorm of tremendous power. And then pain racked his body. Enormous pain that felt as if someone yanked deep inside him and tried to squeeze his innards. He grit his teeth, hoping Katie had been unconscious. During the crossover, he felt his body compress and then pull outward, and then magic pouring into his body. Not good, wholesome Lupin magic of wolf, but pure power, as if someone pumped him full of energy. Opening his eyes, he growled, "Damn, I forgot what a rush that is." The dark fae disentangled himself from Grayson's grip. "It's a wonder you do not experience it more often, Wolf. Or are you so ingrained in the skin world that you forgot how to be yourself?" Not answering, Grayson looked around and found his backpack sitting a short distance away. He strapped it back on and regarded this world. They were just outside a stretch of thorny cacti that made an effective barrier between the vast wasteland of the blasted zone and the glittering black building that was the brothel in this world. The Dark Kingdom. It looked the same as the Earth world at first glance. Overhead, the burning yellow sun beat down upon them, same as it did in the Nevada desert, and the sky was a clear, cloudless blue. But then he noticed the streaks of deep purple and pink rippling in the sky before vanishing, like the northern lights of Alaska. Grayson had noticed a flash of the same streaks in the air back at the Nevada brothel. The dark fae had effectively harnessed the magic of both worlds. Grayson realized. He wondered how Jaden managed the power without becoming totally corrupt or mad. Most of all, he felt different. It was as if he'd repressed everything other about himself on Earth, and here all his powers surfaced. Here in the Dark Kingdom, others were free to practice their magic, embrace their powers, and use them without restriction, without fear of human discovery. No humans lived in the Dark Kingdom, and that lack of repression made the Dark Kingdom dangerous. Could corrupt you if you let the power go to your head, drive you mad if you could not harness your emotions and discipline your magic. Charles had done neither. Grayson sniffed the air and caught Katie's scent. Stronger, richer, and laden with vanilla and a bite of musk that was purely sexual. Still a virgin, but her sexuality had awakened. Grayson glanced back at the building. Katie ain't there. The fae held out a hand and traced a rune in the air. Neither is Ninia. Since her life form has fled this place, they escaped, and if I sense it, Gurner and the other fae will as well. Come, we must find her before they do. Though he was glad Katie had escaped, Grayson shaded his eyes with one hand, deeply worried about her being lost in this desert. I can track her as Wolf. Jaden looked amused. So you are willing to embrace your true nature here, Grayson Moore? Being Lupin in the Dark Kingdom carries many dangers to your soul if you have one left. Grayson didn't matter as much as Katie did. He knew how to take care of himself in this world, but Katie wasn't aware of the hidden dangers in the Dark Kingdom. The two girls traveled together. Jaden waved his right hand in the air, and a stream of pink and purple followed. I memorized Ninia's life force, but we will have to track her on foot to pinpoint their exact location. Grayson unfastened the pack and handed it to Jaden. Put this on. Then Grayson shifted into Wolf, the pull of power nearly making him howl. Gritting his teeth against the pain, he rode the waves as bones lengthened and thickened, and then he finally felt his senses explode with the power of his Wolf. Licking the air, he turned to the dark fae, grimly amused that the jaded. Jaden looked a little stunned. I've heard Lupins were larger in this world, but this is quite excessive. Get on my back. We can go faster if I take us. Jaden's eyes widened. I did not realize wolves could talk in this world. Haven't had much contact with one of us, I reckon. Get on. We're wasting daylight. The fae did so, struggling to climb onto Grayson's furred back as one would try to mount a horse. Finally the fae was on, his feet dangling off the ground. Head east toward that clump of trees, Jaden instructed. The sun beat down upon his head, and the dust tickled his nose, but he raced through the ash and dirt. The pad of his large paws kicked up clouds of ash. Eventually he knew he'd tire, but Grayson would never quit. Not until Katie was found and safe. The dark fae leaned close and whispered in his right ear. Move your furry ass, Wolf. I spied night riders in the distance. Blood chilling, he forced his legs to run faster. Night riders. In exchange for finding escaped prisoners, the mercenary patrols took their payment in Living flesh, not gold. Grayson ran faster. Jaden instructed him where to go until they finally reached the clump of trees. The trees resembled the mesquite trees he'd seen in the Nevada desert. But in this world, the narrow leaves were bright yellow, and the trunks were purple. Beneath the thin shade of one thorny mesquite tree, Katie sat on a rock, next to a petite fey woman with pointed ears. Jaden slid off his back, but Grayson scarcely noticed. All his attention was focused on Katie, the streaks of dirt smearing her round cheeks, the fatigue in her pretty eyes. If I live to be 1,000 years old, I will never see a more beautiful sight. Grayson focused all his magic and shifted back to skin. He waved a hand and conjured clothing and then raced over to her, watching her gaze widen with fear and then delightful recognition. Katie. Grayson hugged her, relieved she was intact, alive and apparently unhurt. Anxious, he skimmed his hands over her arms. You okay? Eyes shining, she cupped his cheek. You came for me. I hoped you would be the one to find me. Might I ask if you brought water? Jaden unfastened the backpack and poured the water out of the canteens. Grayson had packed. Do not drink this water, for it is of the skin world. You mean it will change me? Katie asked. The dark fae grinned. No, but it tastes like shit over here. The water in my kingdom is much more pure, free of skin pollutants. He walked over to a gnarled tree, struck it with the flat end of his sword. A small spring bubbled up on the ground below. Both Katie and Ninia went to it and drank deeply, Grayson as well. Then they filled the 2 canteens and sat upon the ground. Ashen dust caked in Katie's rumpled brown curls. Her palm trembled against his cheek. Grayson took her hand, turned it over and kissed it. Such was his relief at finding her. He wanted to kiss her mouth as well, but they had an audience. He had to get her to the only place where he could keep her safe. Not her world, but his world here. Until he discovered who wanted Katie enough to punch a hole from this world into the skin world to drag her here, she would never be safe. Grayson swatted at his head, trying to rid the thoughts buzzing there like a swarm of noisy mosquitoes. He kept clutching her hand, marveling at her aplomb and courage faced with a new world and threats. Then again, he always knew she was a true survivor. Jaden sat by Ninia. You are Ninia, the missing Thanik and niece to Queen Morgan. I'm not missing. I know where I am. Ninia eyed the other fae warily. Your parents never gave up searching for you, and finally the Queen agreed to offer a reward for your safe return. Ninia blinked. And I suppose you will collect it. Standing, Jaden frowned in the direction of the brothel. Not if those night riders catch up to us. You'll need me to take you back to the Unseelie court. I can find my own way, she snapped. Jaden gave a wry smile. Your powers have depleted, Ninia, by staying in your Thanik form. You cannot even find water for yourself, unless you wish your parents to find your body scattered in 5 pieces, which is what the night riders will do when they find you. You will come with me. The Fey woman turned to Katie. I hate to leave you. I'll be fine. Will you be okay? Katie hugged her. Worry not about me, Wolf. I can take care of myself. Do you trust that one? She pointed at Grayson. With my life, Katie told her. Ninia hugged her again. Then go with him and be well. Motioning to Grayson, Jaden pointed east to the vast stretch of desert. The next stationary portal is a good 8-hour journey, but with your wolf you can make it by dusk. Look for a pile of dry unicorn bones. If you can outrun the night riders, you should be safe. Outrunning the night riders was the least of his worries. He had to find out who the hell aligned with a dark fae to bring Katie here, and why. Until he did, Katie would never be safe. He gave a meaningful look to Grayson. You know what to do to protect Katie. Wolf, do it if necessary. It will save her. Grayson nodded, hoping it wouldn't come down to that. Katie wasn't ready yet for his kind of sex, the sex Lupins demanded here in the Dark Kingdom. Standing before her, Jaden held out a hand to Ninia. Come. Ninia gave him a wary look. I'm not going with you until you give me your word you'll take me to the Queen. No detours when you teleport. Deal? Of course, the Dark Fae assured her. Grayson sputtered as Jaden crossed his fingers behind his back, indicating the man lied. But Ninia had a spark in her eye, and Grayson suspected the woman could hold her own against the Dark Fae. With a doubtful look, Ninia took Jaden's outstretched hand. Jaden snapped his fingers and they vanished. Grayson wished he had the power to teleport Katie, but he didn't dare try, not when he'd gone for years without using his full powers. He was like a rusty car and the action could hurt her. He glanced at the brothel in the distance, and the clouds of dark ash rising. On the horizon, the night riders could not easily track him, but Katie, with her signature aura of the skin world, stood out like a beacon. We have to hustle, Katie, before they reach you. I'm going to shift into wolf. Don't be scared. Strap on the pack and climb onto my back when I'm wolf. I can transform into a wolf as well, she protested. He gave her a calm look. You're smaller than me and I can run faster. We'll get there sooner if you ride me. I'll break your back, she protested. Nah, not a lightweight like you, he teased. After he shifted, her eyes went wide. You're very big. He grinned, showing sharp rows of teeth. In more ways than one, I reckon. She blinked. So Grayson could also speak in wolf form. She knew this deep, smoky voice. Come on, darling, climb on my back. I run faster than those old riders. They're slow as Darius. The remark coaxed a smile to her face. He lay down to make it easier for her to mount him. I'll be mounting you next, darling, and I'll be the one giving you a hell of a ride. I'll be riding your naked body until you scream and beg for more. Until your belly swells with my child. No one else will touch you or I'll rip his damn throat out. The dark thoughts raced through him, thickening his blood and causing his shaft to slide out. Grayson shook his head, trying to control the wild desire rushing through him. It was this form and the animal instincts pawing at him. Smelling fresh, untouched female, ripe for the taking. A woman he desired in the dark of night, a woman he wanted as his mate, to claim in the flesh and to bear his pups. With all his control, he kept the lust at bay and focused on his surroundings. The desert stretched before them, acres of ash and sand. It would take half a day to cross. I can do this. I'll keep her safe from the night riders. But as he tore off through the clump of woods, sensing the night riders finally had caught Katie's scent, he harbored doubts. Katie would be safe from the night riders. He'd fight them to the death before letting them harm her. But who would protect her once his wolf was fully unleashed and ready to mate?